While the entire edifice of woke has never been popular with the vast majority of people anywhere in the Western world, unlike in the United States, the institutions in Canada, Europe, and the United Kingdom have yet to get the message, and they press on. Presently, I'm back in London, and this is a country gone completely insane. It's a country where the Justice Secretary is calling for new guidelines for judges to consider if a defendant's someone of an ethnic, cultural, or faith minority, and if so, they would receive preferential treatment and lower sentences than a straight, white, Christian man. And no, I'm not joking. But it would appear that corporations understand what the governments in the West, excluding the United States, and much of the controlled and dying, I should say, media do not. In that, woke and its worldview has never been popular. In that, and so much so that Disney is refusing to hold a premiere of its new live-action adaptation of Snow White in the UK over fears of a backlash over woking it up. And it's not just Snow White. The Matrix Resurrections, Terminator, Dark Fate, the new Ghostbusters, all were woke failures. In video games, it's not much different. Flop after flop after flop. Last year, Sony's Concord, which cost an estimated $200 to $400 million to produce, was considered a woke bridge too far, and the shooter was taken offline just 2 weeks after its release due to poor reception and a lack of player interest. This year, it looks like Ubisoft, just off a bad year with Star Wars Outlaws, another woke game, after having pushed forward the release date of Assassin's Creed Shadow twice, is looking at another incoming flop. And why is that? Well, inserting its woke agenda via the inclusion of an African samurai into feudal Japan might have something to do with it. It would seem that when money is involved, the corporations, unlike governments outside the US, are waking up after much, much, much suffering, and more on that later. But it's more than this. The woke-driven cultural war, well, it wasn't popular with anyone because it demanded everyone be miserable. Nothing could be funny. Everything was political. Food was about racial consciousness. Clothing was about cultural appropriation. Even exercise and health was lamented as being a breeding ground for extremists and the far right, and being a far right trap. If being healthy is a right-wing trap, I'll take it, as I've seen the benefits from today's sponsor, Black Forest Supplements, for a year now, and I want to share with you their new product. But first, I'll let neuroscientist Andrew Huberman, a Stanford professor, introduce it as he did on Joe Rogan.
Okay, so this is a GLP-1 glucagon-like peptide. A guy down in South America was looking at Gila monsters, and he realized they don't have to eat very often. I wonder if they're hungry all the time or not. Turns out it takes their blood, isolates a peptide, which turns out to be GLP-1, puts it into other animals, and realizes it suppresses appetite. Turns out humans make GLP-1. GLP-1 is stimulated by certain other compounds, plant compounds, stimulate its release. But what does it do in the hypothalamus? It suppresses hunger by way of, there's a particular brain arcuate pathway, but it also affects the mechanosensors of the gut so that you feel like your gut's full.
GLP-1 is becoming something of a buzzword with drugs like Ozempic. You know that one, with the synthetic injection turning Hollywood actresses into walking skeletons for weight loss. But as Dr. Huberman says, our bodies can naturally produce GLP-1 with the right triggers. You can choose injections or you can go natural, and Black Forest's 5-in-1 GLP-1 booster supports weight loss without harming bones or muscles, using ingredients like green tea extract and cayenne pepper to naturally stimulate GLP-1 in your gut and blood. It curbs hunger, prolongs fullness, and boosts metabolism for better weight management without the side effects, and ramps up your GLP-1 naturally. So right now, buy 2 bottles at blackforestsupplements.com/pigeon, or take a picture of the QR code on the screen and get 2 free. This is a great offer for a great natural product, and you can find links to it in the description. First of all, there's been a lot of conjecture and speculation over why what seemed like a juggernaut that was woke, well, how it collapsed so suddenly. It had the backing of almost every institution, big tech being one of the strongest supporters, who literally strangled anyone off social media platforms with algorithmic oblivion to outright bans who disagreed with the agenda, while simultaneously astroturfing the most ludicrous of woke voices. Think BreadTube. Of course, there is the obvious backlash fatigue. After 10 years of corporations, media, and institutions shoving the woke agenda down the population's throat, whether they wanted it or not, well, most are fed up with the performative nonsense, cancel culture, speech policing, and the inability of the ideology to comport with reality. Woke inevitably became a punchline and was tripping all over itself. Woke's central focus of victimhood and identity couldn't then square the circle of, but we're all equal, right? Moreover, the random Mexican or black guy on the street has zero connection to trans issues or activism. Yet leftists tried to group them all as being an oppressed bloc and to rally them against the evil, oppressive white man. But those stark differences eventually proved too big to bridge. Put simply, the whole ideology is a mess. Of course, woke is not dead. Academia, rabid, fanatical activists, some PR and media types still cling to it. But by abandoning the issues of normal people and those issues that they face, and exclusively focusing on wedge issues like transgenderism and who is winning the oppression Olympics, it was never going to be a widely held belief system. Most importantly, you can't change human nature. It resists suppression. The Soviet Union, nearing a century of existence, couldn't erase money or property, despite 3 generations of indoctrination. Black markets thrived, and in Moscow, people eagerly swapped goods for US dollars from tourists. Liberal leftist capitalism, a global cultural political juggernaut, could have dominated entirely. But it stumbled when it embraced cultural relativism, and it's this flawed belief system, adopted wholesale by the left, that marked its decline. It stifles patriotism, it kills national identity, and halts social progress by rejecting moral or qualitative standards, turning everything into a post-truth farce. It's also very inconsistently applied. It relentlessly critiques the familiar while shielding the foreign, no matter how regressive, from judgment. And what's clear is that if you want to win a cultural war, it demands conviction and vigor, not self-deprecating misery. Yet progressive leftists who are mired in confusion and despair, well, they suffer under cultural relativism's weight. But most importantly is, and that is the focus of this video, is that woke is a boutique ideology for champagne socialists. I actually made several videos explaining this, obviously long ago removed by YouTube, whose employees remain committed fanatics to the cause. But that aside, one of those videos, uploaded on the 31st of March 2020, explained why. Entitled The End of Woke and the Politics of Prosperity, it's been archived on Odyssey. A link to it is in the description, but basically, I explained then what has happened in the intervening years. Another way to look at this is think of woke culture as a plant that grew fast in fertile soil, and when the soil dried up, it's struggling. Think back to the 2010s. It was a time with near zero interest rates and massive stimulus that created an economic boom, letting corporations fund woke initiatives like DEI and social justice campaigns as a luxury of the good times. By 2022, inflation soared to 7%, and this led to the tightening of budgets across multinational corporations. And companies like Google and Meta, for example, well, they then began cutting DEI roles. And as such, diversity hires dropped sharply. These companies are now prioritizing survival over systemic ideals. Now with things like rent up 20%, eggs up 70% in the United States, and in the UK where I am currently, energy bills have doubled. And of course, this has shifted everyday focus away from things like ideology to survival. In that, in a 2023 YouGov poll, well, it showed that 60% of Americans cared more about inflation than social issues. Put simply, economic excess once fueled woke extras like diversity training and ESG investing. But as funds dried up, a recent Economist poll showed that investors favored returns over morals, marking woke for what it is: a luxury good, fast losing appeal. Moreover, billionaires and megacorporations have also caught on that they can just give the middle finger to these activists with zero consequences. Musk blazed that trail with Twitter, proving that all of these different satellite woke movements are powerless without a steady cash IV from megacorporations who are now ditching the funding for them. In sum, economics didn't orchestrate woke's decline, but it did expose its reliance on flush times. When the money flowed, caring was easy. When the money stopped, people checked out, raising the question of cash flow versus conviction. Thanks very much for watching. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up on your way out, and also please check to see that you are still subscribed. And remember to check my sponsor today, Black Forest Supplements, and their amazing products. I think you will be very pleasantly surprised. With that, I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.